How to use a weed whacker. Weed whacking is an integral component of yard maintenance, especially in the spring and summer. A weed whacker, also known as a weed eater or trimmer, uses a spinning wire to cut overgrown grass and brush in a small area. This may sound a bit intense, but actually, once you know how to take the right safety precautions and use the correct technique, it's easy to use a weed whacker. Welcome to Best Choices. This video will tell you how to operating a weed whacker safely and using the right technique. Now let's get started. Method 1. Operating a weed whacker safely. Number 1. Protect yourself. Wear safety glasses, gloves, and sturdy shoes to protect yourself. A weed whacker is a power tool and can cause serious injury if the wire comes into contact with you. Sturdy, closed-toed shoes will protect your feet from injury, while work gloves and glasses will protect your hands and eyes from flying debris that the machine will kick up. Gloves will also keep your fingers and palms from becoming sore from holding the weight of the weed whacker. You can typically buy this type of protective gear at any store that sells weed whackers. For even more protection, wear a sturdy pair of jeans or work pants to guard the bottoms of your legs. Number 2. Refrain from using the weed whacker over hard objects. Refrain from using the weed whacker over rocks or other hard objects. Large rocks or hard objects will wear down your nylon cutting wire very quickly. Remove small to medium-sized objects from your work area before you begin trimming. If a rock or object is too large to be removed, use the weed whacker very slowly and conservatively around it in order to avoid damaging your nylon wire. Small rocks can also be kicked up or tossed around by the weed whacker, so it's important for your own safety to avoid them as well. Number 3. Avoid cutting the power cable. Avoid cutting the power cable while using an electric weed whacker. This may cause a short circuit, as well as damage your tool, and possibly yourself. Keep the power cable behind you at all times when using the weed whacker to minimize the chances of accidentally cutting it. If you're using a gas or battery-powered device, this isn't applicable. Before you begin trimming, check to make sure that your power cable stretches as far as needed to do a complete job. If it doesn't, connect the cable to an extension cord. Number 4. Turns off the kill switch. Check to see if your weed whacker has a kill switch that turns it off. Most weed whackers have a throttle or trigger that you constantly hold while you're using the device. When you release this trigger, the weed whacker automatically shuts off. Check the owner's manual for your particular device to locate this kill switch or to confirm that your device doesn't have one. If your weed whacker doesn't have this type of throttle, make sure you know how to safely turn off the device before you begin using it. Number 5. Note that gas-powered weed whackers produce dangerous fumes. The fumes from a gas-powered tool can be dangerous if inhaled, especially when they are concentrated. Be sure to use a gas-powered weed whacker in an open area with plenty of ventilation to avoid breathing in too much of these fumes. You don't have to worry about fumes if you're working with an electric weed whacker. Number 6. Allow the engine to cool down before storing. Allow the engine to cool down before storing your weed whacker. Lay the device on concrete or another non-flammable surface for 5–10 minutes before going to put it away. Never place a hot engine in a storage room or near flammable materials. For best results, leave the weed whacker to cool off in the shade rather than in direct sunlight. Store the weed whacker by placing it on a shelf, hanging it vertically on the wall, or simply laying it flat on the floor of your garage. Be sure to keep the weed whacker away from moisture, open flames, or sparks. Did this video help you? Let's comment below, yes or no. Method 2. Using the right technique. Number 1. Pull out 6 inches, 15 cm of wire and start the weed whacker. In most situations, this is the optimal length of wire to use to generate the most cutting power. Crank the starter cord to start a gas-powered weed whacker, or simply press the on button to start an electric tool. Note that you may need to prime a gas-powered weed whacker in order to start it. Check your owner's manual for specific instructions on how to do this with your particular device. Be sure to hold down the kill switch throttle in order to start the device. Number 2. Hold the weed whacker with one hand. Hold the weed whacker with one hand on the trigger and the other on the handle. This is both the most comfortable and safest way to hold your weed whacker while you're using it. Be sure to keep the trigger end at waist level at all times. Watch out for any strains in your wrists or back while you're using the weed whacker. If you notice any strain, stop and rest for a few minutes before continuing. If your weed whacker comes with a shoulder strap, put the straps over both arms and clip the weed whacker to the bottom of the strap to take some of the weight off your arms. Number 3. Lower the head to about 1 inch, 2.5 cm above the ground. Don't try to cut the weeds all the way down to the ground, you'll just end up slicing dirt and wasting your cord. If the grass needs to be leveled out after you finish trimming, break out a lawn mower to finish the job. Try to keep the weed whacker as level as possible when you lower it to the ground. Otherwise, your trimming job will come out uneven. Number 4. Move the weed whacker side to side. Move the weed whacker side to side about 1 foot, 0.30 m at a time. Move the weed whacker forward in the direction in which the wire spins. For instance, if the wire spins in a clockwise direction, move the weed whacker forward from left to right. Use a steady side-to-side motion to cut with the weed whacker as you slowly walk forward. Gently move the weed whacker from side to side without swinging it. This will not only give you better cutting results, but is also much safer. Number 5. Aim to cut with the tip of the nylon wire. This is where the force generated by the weed whacker will be the strongest and hence most effective at cutting plants. Don't try to cut large swaths of weeds with the whole wire, this may cause the engine to overload. This is especially important if you're cutting tall, thick, or densely clumped together weeds, since these will be very difficult to cut. Number 6. Tilt the weed whacker on its side to edge along a hard surface. Turn the tool 90 degrees and hold it very firmly to avoid dropping it. Move the spinning wire along the side of the hard surface to create a gap between the surface and the surrounding plants. If this is the first time this particular area has been edged, you may want to slightly cut into the dirt to create a more prominent gap between the surface and the grass. Did this video help you? Let's comment below, yes or no.